Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Buy up, buy up. Let's get to this intro. But we can't get to the intro? I said, guard! Let's get to the intro. Welcome back to Gunners Collective TV. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate your support, right? So who is this weirdo? And I say weirdo with a capital W. No, brother, not white power, right? But W for weirdo, right? Because that's exactly what this man Santino Casio is. I don't care if he got off where he was mad at and stabbed Tory Lanez. I don't care that Daystar Peterson got stabbed because of fucking this dude. That's their business, right? That happens. That's prison. But who is the man Santino Casio? Sonny Casio, right? What is he all about? Well, looking into him, doing the research on him, man, has shed a lot of light on exactly who this guy was and exactly the type of person he was. Probably he's a bottom feeder. Probably one of the worst individuals walking around that yard with a super bad case. It's ugly. It's an ugly situation, right? I also talked to someone and got the heads up on what this quite possibly might have been about, this stabbing that he did on Tory Lanez, right? So we're going to get to all that right now. But before that, let's talk Santino Casio. What was he incarcerated for in the first place? And let me answer some of the questions that I've been asked lately, the last few days, right? Or the last couple of days while I've been doing this content, because some people have asked me some crazy ass questions. And I understand not a lot of people have been in the California system. They've never been locked up. So they want an understanding. They don't know. Who better to ask than someone who actually was there, right? Or someone who's been in prison. So Santino Casio was at one point a 20-year-old man dating a 13-year-old girl. Now, I'm not going to say her name right here, because that ain't the thing to do, right? I know that her name is all on the internet and it's popped up, but out of respect for her and her family, I'm going to lean back from that right now and say this. A 20-year-old man with a 13-year-old right there, something's wrong with them. Something's definitely fucking wrong with them. Any man, who would even think about being around a child like that that's not related to him or his own, is something's wrong. You got to screw loose. That type of mentality. I know drugs are heavily involved in that relationship. I know that's a predator, someone who preys on a child, and that's definitely what this guy was doing. He was making some horrible decisions. Anyways, this man went to prison because he got in an argument with his young girlfriend and for whatever reason decided to pull out a gun and use it. And in the midst of this, she was shot in the head and he went on a run. He left and, eventually was caught and given life with the possibility of parole. While incarcerated, man, he got caught for, stabbing people, weapon charges. So this guy had a long history. He had a rap sheet of violent acts. And I could understand it. He was in a situation where he had a bad case already. He lost all hope. He was a piece of shit. How would John Bravo say it? He was a piece of shit, right? That's a real piece of shit. Someone who goes in there who is already locked up for murdering and preying on a child and then continues them activities. But that's the typical type they look for. I heard he joined a dropout gang. I'm not going to tell you which one because, his actions do not reflect them. Not everybody from every gang or everywhere, just because they're a dropout or are like that dude, right? But this guy Santino, there's no excuse for the type of person he became and the type of person he is. Any man that would accept a runaway, because that's what this girl was, man. She was from Palmdale. She ran away for whatever reason, man. And these 13, 14, 15-year-old girls, man, even guys, they think they're grown-ups. They think they know better than their family or their parents. And, I myself did the same thing when I was young. I ran away. And guess what happened? I got caught up in a murder case. I got caught up hanging out with the homies here and there. I got put in a lot of bad situations, and I suffer even today for the decisions I made as a child, right? I suffer every day thinking about what if, man, I should have just stood home. I shouldn't have been out there in the streets like that, because there ain't nothing out there kosher in them streets. There ain't nothing out there good. Anyways, somehow, some way, this little girl ran away and found herself in a duplex apartment with a 20-year-old. She was 13. He was a 20-year-old Santino, Sonny, Casio, probably on Scante. More than likely, man, a droguero, drugged out of his mind. And if he was looking anyway like he looks in those fucking pictures, the mugshots, man, I'm sure this girl was intimidated. But they got into some sort of relationship. Now, I don't know if it was physical, but if it was his girlfriend, you can only fucking imagine, right? Without wanting to. So that automatically puts him on the chomo shelf. That's what he was. So after that, they have an argument, and no one knows why the argument started. But first of all, think about it. A 20-year-old man arguing with the little girl. What can she possibly have done to make him mad, right? Besides fucking watch a different cartoon than the one he wanted to watch. And this guy proceeds to pull out a weapon and shoot her in the head. Okay, unfortunately, it's a tragic loss for her family. It's a waste of life for her and a waste of life for him, because now he has to go into the California prison system. No good. As soon as his charges are identified and there was a child involved and he was in a relationship, well, he definitely cannot walk the general population yard. I don't give a fuck what gang he was representing on the streets. I don't care about the work he put in. I don't care about how hardcore he was and he has heart to stab people. That shit went out the window the moment he chose to get in a relationship with a child and do what he did. Now, it's unfortunate all the way around, but this guy finds himself locked up. And of course, they only have one option. When you have a bad case like that involves children and anything, you are going to the sensitive needs yard because you have a sensitive need. They need to protect you from the general population, because if you go to the GP yard, you will be stabbed numerous times. You will be metaflighted out of there. You will be removed. However you want to say it. I remember the Southsiders back in the days, they used to say fucking whacked off the yard, right? A lot of people used to say rolled up off the yard. Northerners used to say removed off the yard. Everyone had their little saying, but it all meant the same thing. Bye-bye is what it meant, right? So he goes into an SNY yard, and immediately, what does he do? He joins up with the dropout gang. Unfortunately, the group that he was from didn't care about his charges, didn't care that he had intimate relationships with a 13-year-old, didn't care about any of that. They just seen a guy who was a crash dummy, an EOP, a JCAT, someone who will go above and beyond and be reckless on that yard and could be utilized and intimidate other people. Now, let's fast forward to Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez happens to land on this same yard that this guy's on. And there's a lot of people saying 50 yards, SNY yards. Look, I guarantee you 100%. 100%. A guy with them type of charges that had interactions with a 13-year-old and ultimately shot her in the head cannot walk a 50 yard. Cannot definitely be on a general population yard. There was only one yard for him, and that was an SNY yard. So, yes, Tory Lanez was on an SNY yard. No big issue. If that's the yard he decided to go to or the yard they decided to put him on, remember, X-Rated, your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, was also on an SNY yard. No big deal. He did his time. He got out. There's a lot of people that still show him love. He's still making music. It is what it is, man. I have nothing bad to say about that guy. But he's on an SNY yard, and there are going to be individuals like Santino, Sonny, fucking Casios, and dudes with even worse charges than that, if you could find some, right? Because this guy's a chomo. He's a kid killer. He's all that, right? So somewhere in the meantime, in between time, these guys had an interaction on that yard, whether it was business, whether Tory Lanez knew what he was in for or didn't. And more than likely, he didn't know what that guy was in for. He's seen him tattoos, hanging around with a few dudes, and probably fucking had some interaction with them. Probably knew who he was. Obviously, right? Now, the story that I'm hearing, this is coming from a few different people, is that in visiting, Tory Lanez used to get visits quite frequently. Understandable, man. He's a star. I'm sure he got people on the list coming to see him every single weekend. He's coming out of that cell, man. He's making sure that he hits that visiting room, right? Because that visiting room, when you go to visiting, it's like getting out of the actual prison. It's like, man, it's like a safe zone. You're actually somewhere like, man, there's families, there's kids running around. You feel like, man, different, you know, like away from the population, away from the bullshit shenanigans. You could be there with your family. It's actually your loved ones. And you can only understand that feeling if you've been locked up and you get a visit. You know, it just feels like, man, I could rest for a minute here. I could relax. You know, no, there's not too much tension, because traditionally the visiting rooms are off limits when it comes to violence, because you are definitely not going to get off on someone in front of another person's family and disrespect their family, and they're not going to disrespect yours. It's kind of a neutral zone, right? Now, this is something that has happened over the years, and it's not spoke on too much. There are times when dudes are visiting their old ladies or their family, and a homeboy brings like his sister or a homegirl or even his old lady, and they're good looking. There's some very good looking women that go into that visiting room to visit guys, right? And as a grown man that's been locked up, that hasn't had no interaction with the woman, you're going to look. It's the human nature. Now, you can take a quick glance. You see that's the homie sister or old lady. You don't disrespect. You don't wink at them. You don't try to have interaction with them. You don't do any of that, because that's very disrespectful. And you definitely don't do that outside of your ethnicity, because people are going to trip. Black guys are going to trip if you're Mexican looking at their chick. Mexican guys are going to trip. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry it has to be racial, but fuck this world is, right? It's unfortunate. What they're saying is that Tory Lanez was in the visiting room disrespecting people's old ladies. And of course the chicks are going to say, oh shit, that's Tory Lanez. You know how chicks are. You know, oh wow, they used to do the same thing with X-rated. Oh wow, that's X-rated, you know, because they don't see them as someone incarcerated and for what their crimes are. They're just like, oh wow, look, it's Tory Lanez, right? And so of course some of them might get extra fresh because they see him and he's going, you know, according to what everyone's saying, Tory Lanez was very full of himself. Balling on the yard, thinking, man, I'm the man. This is easy. This locked up shit ain't shit, man. Ain't no one doing nothing to me. Of course he's thinking that. He's on an SNY yard. No one's pressing him. No one's pushing up on him. A lot of them dudes are happy he's on that yard with them. They feel like they're somebody. So by him winking and having interaction with people's families, and this is just a story that's going around, some people took it as disrespect. Now, whether that's the reason Sonny Casios decided to ultimately murder, you know, Tory Lanez, because that's what that was. That wasn't just a stabbing. That wasn't just a removal. That wasn't just get the fuck out of here. Let me lay a demo down to scare you. There was some serious metal put in him. 14 times he got hit in some vital organs, his lungs, you know. So definitely, man, there was a lot going on there. So that man had to feel very disrespected or utilized. Now, a lot of people are thinking, oh man, he was aggressive. That was something personal. Quite possibly. We're never going to know the full true story unless he tells us, right? Why he did it and how he did it. But the fact is, for someone to come out of their cell on unlock at 7:20 in the morning, okay, and basically on the way to breakfast, come out of that building, come out, he was pacing back and forth. He was ready. You know, let me tell you about doing a pegada, doing a stabbing, right? You get the butterflies, there's tension, hypertension. You got a lot going on right there. You're thinking, what if? You know, myself, when I was involved in anything like that, I was thinking, man, I'm not trying to get shot by the tower. I'm not trying to get seen. You know what I'm saying? That what if this dude takes a knife from me? What's going on? There's a lot going through your head. You know, it takes a lot to do that. You know, unless you're a JCAT or an EOP guy, they're just crazy. They don't give a fuck. They'll stab you just on sight, right? With whatever. You know, their mind is running differently. But any normal person would be like, you know, you're tense. It's about to go down. There's adrenaline pumping. You know, once the deed starts, then all that goes out the window. It just is what it is. Now you're in the motion, right? So I can imagine this guy pacing back and forth in his cell, getting ready to do this. Now, again, this isn't a guy that should be allowed to even be walking around in the yard with a knife in his hand. But it is an SNY yard. There's a lot worse individuals than him. Okay? There's a lot of people now that are trying to say, so he does the deed, and there's a lot of people trying to say, man, the blacks need to ride on the Mexicans for this. For that piece of shit? First of all, he is on the SNY yard, which means he's no longer doing the Mexican thing. He's no longer doing the Southsider thing, because he was a Southsider. I'm not going to tell you what neighborhood he was from, but that's what he was in the past, right? He's not affiliated or associated with that. He might be from his little dropout gang, and there might quite possibly be some tension between the brothers and that particular group because the brothers feel some type of way. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. In this whole situation, a lot of people ain't going to want to hear it, man. But, you know, there's a lot of people, oh, the brothers are going to retaliate. There was a phone call made. They say it's up, it's this, it's that. That is an SNY yard, man. I really, really, really doubt those brothers right there are going to do anything. Because first and foremost, let me be real. No racism, none of that weird shit. 99% of them brothers on the yard, just like 99% of those fucking essays on that yard, got bad charges. Grapes. Weird shit. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Now, of course, Tory Lanez was placed on that yard because shot old Megan Thee Stallion in that pinky toe, right? He was placed on a yard like that for security concerns, man. Sometimes when someone's popular, they're a star, they put them on softer yards. Well, not everybody. Or that's an excuse that they give. Oh, he's too popular, right? We're going to put him on a soft yard. And there was other yard. Look, they put Cain Velasquez on a 50-50 yard, on a non-designated yard. You know, a yard that people are just, you know, doing their time on. He's not on an SNY yard. So to each their own. But Tory Lanez ended up there. I'll tell you this right now, man. I highly, highly doubt them brothers right there on that yard give a fuck, because when the incident went down, it didn't go down in a cell. He didn't run up in his cell and stab him. You know what I'm saying? And went down in a common area. That means he's probably going down the stairs in the day room when he got off, or in the sally port, like I said, or right side outside of the building. These are the three areas, the common area where they got off, right? And there was guaranteed brothers around. I know one guy tried to say, oh, it happened on the tier, and he was on a tier full of Mexicans. That shit don't happen in no general population yard. That has to be a SNY yard, right? Look, I'm going to be honest with you. The majority of the guys on the SNY yards are Mexicans. That's a fact, man. Gang dropouts, people that were removed, people that got weird cases. There's a lot of essays there, a lot of NAs, right? Whatever. Or guys that were affiliated with that at one point. So to see the brothers like fucking do this, I don't know, man. Maybe individually, but as a group, as a whole, it's not a black and brown thing, man. Not on the SNY yard. It's a personal thing. You know, now if a group directed this dude to go hit Tory Lanez because they felt they were being disrespected, because he looks like a crash dummy. I'm going to be honest with you. The way the dude Sonny Casios looks, and I call him Sonny Casios Santino, but they call him Sonny. Sonny Casios looks, he looks like a fucking crash dummy. Here, homie, here's a pedazo. Go stick that vato there, right? You know, like he'll do, but he's already crashed out. He's already doing time. You know, I'm sure there's dudes that don't even know what he's on the yard for, like his initial crime, but now it's out there, so everyone's going to know. But there were some that did. You know, unfortunately, Tory Lanez got stabbed by this dude. And then there's stories, Tory Lanez is running the yard. He's got all the money, man. I looked up his net worth. He's worth about $1 million, right? That don't mean nothing. That's still $1 million more than I got or you got, right? But I'll say this. As far as him controlling a yard, I don't know what type of American Me movie motherfuckers are watching. That is a SNY yard. Nobody, look, at 150-pound Canadian man is not going to run an SNY yard. He's going to get drilled in an SNY yard like he did. Okay, it's not going to happen. He might be the talk of the town with his gente, his own people. Like he might be running some shit right there or think he is. But ain't no one else going out like that, man. Unfortunately, for Tory Lanez, he was on a bad yard and bad shit happened. As far as this dude, Sonny Casios, goes, he's a piece of shit, man. He's a weirdo. And I'm not surprised he did these types of things. These guys think the more people they whack and the more people they hit, it makes their case or makes them seem hardcore or crazier. It doesn't. It'll never go away. What he did to that 13-year-old will always remain stuck in his mind. And that's probably what drove him crazy. That's probably what made him EOP and made him wild like that. You know, sometimes certain incidences in your life create a monster. Anyways, with that being said, Sonny Casios is in trouble, man. He's going to pick up an attempted murder charge. It ain't going to change his time. He's already doing life with the possibility of parole, man. He's going to catch an attempted, and they're probably going to add some time concurrent to what he's doing, or maybe even consecutive. You just never know. It doesn't matter at this point. Anyways, man, there's a lot more into the mindset of this guy. But from what I'm hearing, man, people were upset because he was Tory Lanez was disrespecting people's family members at visiting, or the chicks were on him. Either way, man, dudes are going to get jealous, mad, upset, and shit like this is going to happen. I believe this dude was the crash dummy. I don't believe his actual family or girlfriend was disrespected like people are saying. I believe he was told, like, hey, bro, because they know you got badass charges, bro. Unless you want to get the fuck up out of here yourself, you better go handle business. And that's just it. With that said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. Thank you, man. The gun.